I have a little bit of a confession. Something that if SpongeBob heard me say, he would be immensely disappointed. He wouldn't be going, for very long. I have only seen the first SpongeBob movie. I haven't seen the other 5. I haven't even taken a look at them. I don't even know what they're about. I remember the trailers, and that's it. I know in one of them, he goes out of the water, which is something he already did in the first movie, and there's a movie about Plankton. There's a movie where Ice Spice is all like, yes, 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 I must show my panties to the children at the premiere. That's pretty much all I really know about the SpongeBob movies. I love the first one, and I love the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob, but once I started to realize as I watched seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7 that it wasn't as good as seasons 1 through 3, I stopped watching SpongeBob altogether, and thus, I never even cared about any of the movies after the first one. Even if I heard that they were good, I was just like, yeah, but is it as good as the first SpongeBob movie? Probably not. I'm just not going to check it out. So in this video, I'm going to be retaking a look at the first movie to see if it still holds up today, and taking a look at the 5 movies that I had never seen before, ranking them all from worst to best. If you like content like this, please make sure to like and subscribe. I'll make it worth your while. Now let's finally take a look at every single SpongeBob movie. Dear Lord, if you see that, if you see the light shining down upon me as the world smiles as I'm about to review SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, you can just tell the universe wants this. Take a look at the light shining down upon me. It is just a must that I discuss this chronologically, taking a look at SpongeBob SquarePants the movie first. I don't know if that's gonna bother anybody. I'll probably put more clips than actual me here. I just think it looks so illustrious as I discuss the very first movie. And just something that I immediately have to point out about this film that kind of ruffles my feathers is the fact that it only has a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. Isn't that a little bit odd, a little bit weird that it can only have 68%? It is the pinnacle of everything a SpongeBob fan would want in movie format. Genuinely, I don't know. I just feel like any critic on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm not saying you should trust Rotten Tomatoes reviews, because the critics there, they usually don't have the best interest of what they're watching in mind. They're usually sitting there just having their head in between their 800-pound wife's thighs, just going, you know, it's not Casablanca, it's not The Godfather. I found SpongeBob, you know, to be a little bit annoying. Like every time he went, I just thought he was a little bit annoying. You know, I've never watched the show, but like the movie was all over the place. It was paced really weird. I don't know. And then he stands up and just hits his beer glass over his child because he doesn't have any whimsy in his life and he's a horrible person. That's how I imagine a lot of the Rotten Tomatoes critics who don't actually care about the series that they're watching when they go to make their silly little review. It's always a little bit odd because this is genuinely such a good movie, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time because it captures the essence of seasons 1 through 3 of SpongeBob so perfectly, and I actually think it's paced pretty good. You have the SpongeBob's dream, which sets up his character arc very well, and his character arc is executed so well in this movie that I genuinely see the movie as the canonical end of the series. It works very well to tackle SpongeBob going through a situation where even though he is a kid, he's a goofy goober. He wants to just live his life the way he wants to live his life, but he still has desires that only an adult can achieve, and he has to go through this entire character journey of accepting himself, which ultimately makes him appear more mature and earning him his goddamn manager position. I absolutely love it, and this movie does juggle a lot of things going on. I mean, hell, the call to action isn't even 30 minutes in with the dream sequence happening. You have SpongeBob being all like, I'm ready, promotion, I'm ready, promotion, and he goes there, he doesn't get his promotion, it goes to Squidward. You have Patrick with his thick, big, naked ass invading and stripping everywhere, giving everybody a beautiful sight as they sat in the theaters with their children, just watching that big, thick, pad ass on their screen. It's just very enjoyable for the beginning, but SpongeBob, he gets his initial character arc beginning very early in the movie where he wants to be better, and he's initially very sad because he doesn't get the promotion. I'm Ranny, depression. You know, it's very sad and you feel bad for him, but it still has that classic SpongeBob energy with them going to Goofy Goobers or whatever it's called, and waiter, just having so much ice cream, getting drunk off ice cream that it feels fun. So much fun that if you were a fan of all the seasons before this movie came out, you would already be having such a great time. I absolutely adore the beginning of this movie, and I could definitely see a critic being all like, man, it's half an hour in and they really haven't done anything. It's just setting up a bunch of nonsense. Like, all we really gotten plot-wise is Plankton being like, Plan C. Oh, it's diabolical. You know, that's really all we got plot-wise, but if you just like the show, watching SpongeBob and Patrick eat a bunch of ice cream and just be really silly is very entertaining, and it's handled extremely well.
Spot, I'm feeling better already.
Yeah.
Waiter, let's get another round over here.
And then you have Plankton stealing Neptune's crown, which sets up, you know, some of the greatest sequences ever, because Neptune, he has a bit of a problem. He's what you would call in the business a chrome dome. You know, he's got a little bit of a thinning problem, to say the least, and he shows up and we get one of my favorite sequences in any movie ever, where he's like, oh, my hair's thinning a little bit, and SpongeBob's like, it can't be that bad, and then everybody's just like, bald, bald, bald.
Sure it's not that noticeable. Bald, 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 bald.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So, King Neptune, because Plankton framed it all on Mr. Krabs, is going to kill Mr. Krabs because his crown was stolen, which is the call to action 30 minutes in, but again, if you love SpongeBob, it's still very enjoyable to get there. It's more about the journey instead of the destination with the plot with this. I think it's very enjoyable, so just seeing that rating, it just always pisses me off because I really feel like it has a lot to do with the pacing of the film and just juggling so many different things going on, like Plankton as a villain, running away from the ice cream demon, Dennis, the bubble blowing babies, all of that stuff, but I think it's handled extremely well, especially if you're a fan of the show. So, SpongeBob and Patrick, they go on this wondrous journey, and I really do enjoy it. That scene where they're talking to the gas station clerks, and they're just like, what'll it be, fellas? Mustard or ketchup? You won't survive 5 seconds over the county line. You can't possibly go out there. Yeah. Well, we can totally do that. We can totally do that, yeah. And they get their car stolen, and then they just start baffling and just laughing because they managed to last 12 seconds.
How many seconds was that?
12. In your face!
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And it sets up SpongeBob and Patrick with all their struggles, and they go to the bubble blowing baby place where you're not allowed to blow any bubbles or be a silly little baby. They have a bubble party, and that guy's just like, if we got any bubble blowing babies, we're gonna have a lot of problems around here. Now everybody line up. I'm a goofy goober, yeah. I just think it's great. I really do. I don't know, I'm kind of just like going over the plot in my head right now, and it's all still just as enjoyable. The tension and the passion as they're standing, and then those two guys sing out that they're a goofy goober, and SpongeBob and Patrick barely manage to escape getting the car back, going to that ice cream demon fish lady that almost tries to eat them. They lose the burger mobile, the Krabby Patty mobile. Mindy comes over and is just like, hey guys, you're really men? And Patrick is just like, you want to see my underwear?
See my underwear?
No, Patrick.
Did you want to?
It's paced well, it's comedic, it's good. They get the mustaches, they start singing about how they're men.
Yeah, go, Pat.
In between all of this, we have Dennis chasing them down and slowly getting closer and closer. I love just their progression as they go through this giant chasm of all the monsters while singing about, now that we're men, we can do anything, now that we're men, which is a banger song, by the way. It's just very enjoyable. They get to the end, and then Dennis, he rips off their mustaches and is about to kill them, and Dennis is immediately stepped on by the Cyclops. And Dennis is probably my favorite villain within this movie, even though I truly do love that Plankton is just elevated to 100 in terms of his villainy throughout this film. I still think Dennis is great for the majority of it, because he's just so unbelievably ruthless and willing to do anything to genuinely kill SpongeBob and Patrick, and I understand that Plankton is kind of doing the same here, but it never really felt that tense, and there was that much emotion behind it, and like SpongeBob and Patrick could actually be killed by Dennis. I just feel like he's one of the greatest SpongeBob villains of all time, and I love that he does come back later. You have SpongeBob and Patrick being taken by the Cyclops, going into the real world, which is always so weird because I know the second movie is called Sponge Out of Water, which seems like a weird title. I know I haven't seen the movie. I don't really know the implication there. With SpongeBob already went out of water in the first movie, is that really that significant? And it's not like it's a foreign concept, but either way, I digress. So SpongeBob and Patrick, they almost die, and they literally die. I can't imagine imagine being like a 4-year-old going to see this movie in theaters and watching SpongeBob and Patrick die initially. The amounts, the tears, the passion, the fear as my spongy Baba dies. No.
Goofy! 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 Goofy!
They survive, they beat the Cyclops, and then just, God, it's in the most SpongeBob fucking way ever that I just love. I could definitely see a critic, you know, just slamming down popcorn. It's just falling into his lap as he's eating it out of his belly button. He's just like, oh, I can't reach it. The chasm, it's too deep, but I need my corn. Oh, God, please, honey, will you look inside of my belly button for my popcorn, darling? Oh, what's going on in the movie? Is that David Hasselhoff? Are they riding on top of David Hasselhoff? It's so random, but I absolutely love that the finale of this movie, the climax, is riding atop of David Hasselhoff. And then all of a sudden they just see, it's not a boot. And there's just a fucking boot just speeding towards them as David Hasselhoff is going 50 miles across the water. And it's Dennis. Dennis is just back. I don't even know how he did it. But everything with that final battle with Dennis where they're just basically running away from him and everything feels a lot more serious than it is with SpongeBob jumping over the leg, like the slow motion tension just for Dennis to walk across the body and be there at the same time. I absolutely adore that. And then Dennis gets beat by just slamming into a boat, which was a little bit lame, but I still thought Dennis was very enjoyable for this movie. And then just the fact of watching David Hasselhoff, the David Hasselhoff glaze in this movie was even just something I couldn't even fathom, where SpongeBob and Patrick watches his just boobs, his big old pectoral muscles just expand to prepare a like rocket launch to just zip them all the way back down to Bikini Bottom was intense and thrilling. I couldn't believe at the Hasselhoffs, the Hoff himself, his control with his big meaty pectoral.
Did you see that?
The control.
So they go back down there, they manage to save Mr. Krabs, and then we just get one of the greatest sequences of all time with Plankton taking control of King Neptune and SpongeBob being the only one who could save all of them by singing Goofy Goober Rock, put your toys away. God, it's just such a good song. It's such a great way to end this silly goddamn movie with SpongeBob just rocking out, destroying all the helmets and saving everything, and it just works so unbelievably well with SpongeBob being promoted at the end. It just has everything for me. And I know a lot of this review for this portion of the video has been based on the really low rating because this movie does mean a lot to me, but I just think it works in every department if you're a fan of SpongeBob. I love SpongeBob's character arc. I love the comedy within this movie. I like all the villains that they juggle. I actually really love that Plankton was turned up to 100, like that scene where he's sitting there as Mr. Krabs is going to get boiled alive, he's going to get murdered, and Plankton's just like, yes, yes! Like, it feels a little bit out of character for Plankton to be that unbelievably ruthless, but it works so well in the context of this movie of turning SpongeBob into something so serious, yet written so well. I absolutely adore every single aspect. I think all the different characters that they introduced were really well, like Mindy, for example, is great. King Neptune is used very well. Dennis is a great villain. I wish we got a little bit more Squidward and Sandy, but again, I digress. It doesn't really matter when this is one of the greatest SpongeBob experiences of all time, and I wonder how watching the other movies is going to make me feel about this one. Maybe I'll like those a lot more and I won't just consider it the peak of SpongeBob. Maybe I'll consider there to be multiple peaks of SpongeBob. So I'm very excited overall. If I was to rate this movie 1 to 10, I would give it a 10 out of 10, and it does have its flaws, but in terms of nostalgia, comedy, and just never really feeling like it ages, just always holding up for me, it's just always going to be a 10 out of 10 movie, one of my favorites of all time. Taking a look at the next movie in the franchise, it's gonna be SpongeBob SquarePants Sponge Out of Water. And that title is really fucking dumb. I really feel like whoever was the person who came up with that title was just stripped down and castrated. They looked him dead in the eye, gave him a big old smooch on his lips, a smack on the ass, and sent him his way, firing him and getting rid of him, because that doesn't sum up the movie at all. I don't know why this movie wasn't called SpongeBob SquarePants and the Vanishing Formula, SpongeBob SquarePants and the I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to call it sponge out of water when the majority of the movie is in the fucking water. Genuinely, upon my initial viewing, I was waiting the entire time to be all like, how are they going to progress this to them eventually going on land and becoming superheroes? Because that's all the trailers were back in the day, and those trailers made me not want to watch the movie, and I was just sitting here waiting for it. I just never really cared for them entering their 3D format and deciding to go onto land and do all of that shit. I never cared about it, but I was waiting for it the entire time. And when it finally arrived, I felt like it just didn't compare to everything they were doing when they were actually in the water, which I thought was a lot more entertaining. This movie, it doesn't even remotely compare to the first SpongeBob movie. It's good, don't get me wrong, but in terms of actually building the characters up to something important, turning Plankton into an actual meaningful villain, and balancing everything that was going on with the plot extremely well, the first movie has this beat in every regard. But I will say, for this being a SpongeBob movie, it does kind of feel like it's taking a lot of the really good SpongeBob episodes and just kind of mashing them all together. The beginning of this movie is a lot of fun, with Plankton trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula, just like classic SpongeBob shenanigans, but he's doing it with a tank and an army and a big Plankton mech, and it kind of feels like that episode where Plankton switches places with Mr. Krabs, and Mr. Krabs, of course, you know, in an alternate dimension where he needs the formula, he has to be all like, I need the formula. I must be naked and brash my bare ass cheeks everywhere as I hunt down the formula. I would have loved to explore that alternate dimension Krabs a little bit and why he had to be undressed and extra ooey gooey naked to steal the formula, but hey, I digress. Do what you want, Krabs. Be just a wonderful example of indecent exposure. But the beginning of it does feel like that. It's kind of like a military type thing where they're just shooting at Plankton with ketchup, fighting him, throwing mayo bombs at him, and just trying to stop him from getting the Krabby Patty formula. It really felt like that classic episode, and I feel like they do a great job with references to past episodes and specifically focusing on referencing the earlier seasons, which I think does a great job of making the older fans relate to the movie a lot more, like when Patrick gets hit in the head and says, "Oh, Finland!" Finland. You know, like, that's really entertaining, and that's a nice callback to the Doodle Bob episode. It's just things like that that make it a lot more entertaining. So eventually Plankton does get the formula, and he's wrestling with SpongeBob over it, and the formula vanishes into thin air, which causes Plankton to get framed for stealing the formula. SpongeBob knows that it wasn't him, so they have to team up. And again, it kind of feels like the F is for friends who do stuff together, U is for you and me. You know, it kind of feels like that episode for the majority of it, with Plankton not really understanding friendship, but in this case it's teamwork, and the main joke is that he can't even say team. And it feels like that, but a slightly worse version. I was still enjoying it. I think SpongeBob and Plankton are a great team up for this movie, as they try to just go on the run and run away from everybody who's hunting them down. Watching Bikini Bottom just turn into an apocalypse because there's no Krabby Patties is also very entertaining. I do enjoy all those aspects. One thing that I absolutely love is where SpongeBob, he goes to Patrick because he's assuming Patrick will join the team and try to solve all of this, and Patrick, just once again, we're 2 for 2 with Patrick just throwing up his big meaty ass and using it to his advantage. In the first SpongeBob movie, he puts a flag in that thing and is like, "Yay, SpongeBob!" as he's just, you know, invading the manager ceremony for the Krusty Krab 2. That was great. You get to see Pat's big, meaty, voluptuous booty. And then, in the second movie, Patrick, he doesn't want to help SpongeBob, so he just takes his big old bulging ass and sits on SpongeBob and is willing to throw him under the bus.
SpongeBob, let's get out of here.
Patrick, why are you doing this?
And get him basically slaughtered and sacrificed, which was a great, you know, way to subvert my expectations, because I genuinely did think that Patrick was just going to join SpongeBob and they were just going to try to capture that magic, but I'm glad that it was mainly SpongeBob and Plankton for the majority of the movie. They do things like having to break in and get Karen so that they could get a supercomputer and travel back in time and into the future and whatnot so that they could try to get the Krabby Patty formula back. And again, it's like they're taking a lot of things that worked from the best SpongeBob episodes, like the fun episode or the naked crab episode, or in this case SB-129, where Squidward travels in time. And the thing is that even though this is a fully fledged movie and it's got a lot of really good stuff in it, a lot of stuff that I enjoy, I think the classic episodes that are just 11 minutes entertained me more than this movie did. Which is a very weird thing to say because obviously I'm getting a lot more here, but if I had the choice between watching this movie again and rewatching SB-129 where Squidward's like, future, I think I would choose SB-129, which is weird. I don't know, I do enjoy that they're taking a lot from the classics, and just watching SpongeBob and Plankton just go through time and doing all this stuff, meeting a giant watcher space dolphin is also a lot of fun. I just think it's very entertaining, everything that they do in that regard. They eventually get the formula, but it disappears again. I'm kind of blanking on what happens to the formula again. I know that they get it back, and I think they lose it again because Patrick uses the time machine, and then Squidosaurus Rex shows up, and then they want to sacrifice somebody, and they're going to sacrifice SpongeBob, and the main guy, the main villain who caused the formula to vanish in the first place, his name is Burger Beard, and he took the formula from this like ancient tomb, and he's been using it up above to make Krabby Patties on the surface, and they smell Krabby Patties, and then they eventually do go to the surface thanks to the help of the dolphin. God, all of this sounds so convoluted if you don't really know what's going on. It's just all so stupid. And again, I like the charm of SpongeBob. I like the shenanigans they get up to. But when it's an hour and 10 minutes in and we're just now getting to the surface, I'm not in the mood to watch SpongeBob and Patrick eat a bunch of cotton candy and then giggle and laugh all the time. Or for them to like fall onto people, Patrick to passionately make out with ice cream. Like, I think it's funny. Where have you been all my life? The pacing of this movie does bother me a little bit. It doesn't capture that same magic as the first SpongeBob movie. It's just, it feels very slow with everything they decide to do. It just genuinely feels like they probably could have cut out like 20 minutes of this movie, and I would have been enjoying all this stuff on the surface a lot more if they would have gotten to it so much earlier. I don't know if that's a weird critique or not. It feels like a very long movie, even though it's not, and that's not the best thing to say about it. So they're doing all their shenanigans, and then they find Burger Beard. Burger Beard tries to kill them, and they end up finding this page in the book and rewriting their story to make them superheroes. And I think the entire sequence with them actually fighting Burger Beard is a lot of fun with all the superpowers, all the stuff they decide to do, the jokes, the comedy, the animation. I think it's really good. I think Burger Beard was a wonderful villain for the finale of this, and the subversion where Plankton disappears for like the final 25 minutes of the movie and then comes back as just big, meaty, thick Plankton. There was definitely a man just sitting in that theater who just saw Plankton and his ripping, bulging biceps and just splooged everywhere. He was thrilled. He was excited. He didn't know what to do, and he got kicked out of that movie theater for that. But either way, it was thrilling. I really liked Buff Plankton saving the day, and then Plankton having like a full circle moment, even though his arc didn't really feel fully explored within the movie. Like, he kind of just slowly became more okay with everything instead of having like a moment of realization where he would decide to give back the formula. But still, I was okay. There's not really a big character arc in this movie. I guess you could point to Plankton, but that's pretty much it. I'm glad Sandy and Squidward were featured more in this movie. And so, yeah, they go back to Bikini Bottom and sell some Krabby Patties. And it's overall a very decent movie. I got a couple of laughs out of me. I know that I'm critiquing it a lot, but it's just because I just watched SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, and it's genuinely like the peak of SpongeBob to me. And to just compare it to that one versus this, it just feels like I'm watching something completely different, which I am, but it feels a lot worse. So if I was to rate this one 1 to 10, I would probably give this movie a solid like 7.5 out of 10, which I think is a very solid and very good rating. I just don't think it's anywhere near the beauty and perfection that is the first SpongeBob movie, but overall still very decent. I was pleasantly surprised. Taking a look at the next movie in the franchise, it's going to be Sponge on the Run, and honestly, while watching those first two movies, I was thinking, man, you know, this might not be that bad. I'm gonna have a couple of critiques here and there, but it seems like all the SpongeBob movies might just be decent. But Sponge on the Run, it's safe to say this movie is unbelievably dog shit. The entire finale of this movie is just one big advertisement for Camp Coral, and if you watch my video on Camp Coral, I absolutely hate that show. I think it's really bad, doesn't capture capture the essence of SpongeBob in any way, and just feels like a big excuse to make a lot of money. So the fact that they produced an entire movie to advertise that and act like it's this big thing, like, oh, it's so emotional, they all just care about SpongeBob, when in reality, they're just focusing on the aspects of, we all met at Camp Coral back in the day, which just spits in the face of the fact that there's actual canonical ways in which SpongeBob met everybody within the series already, except maybe Patrick. He was always friends with Patrick, but he meets Sandy in the episode where it's like, Pinky! Pinky! And he can't breathe in there, which is a very enjoyable episode. The literal pilot is SpongeBob meeting Squidward and Mr. Krabs and becoming a fry cook, so the finale of this movie just genuinely pissed me off. Also, the pacing of this movie is all over the place. The villain, King Poseidon, is just so underdeveloped, and they try to make Plankton the villain, and then they just completely abandon that idea after like 30 minutes in the stupidest way ever. The plot in the beginning of it is actually very interesting. I do like the concept of retackling Gary going missing. The beginning of it, we get to see SpongeBob and Gary's friendship and how he gets stolen by Plankton because King Poseidon needs snails. He needs that ooey gooey snail trail to rub all over his face so that he looks young and prosperous, and Plankton needs to get rid of SpongeBob because SpongeBob always just inconveniences his plans to steal the secret formula, so he steals Gary and gives it to King Poseidon, so SpongeBob and Patrick have to go on a big journey to get it back. And I don't know, it's just everything they decide to do is over the top in that SpongeBob kind of way, but it feels like every single scene is pointless and overstays its welcome. We get one good scene within the first hour of this movie that I truly loved, and that was SpongeBob meeting Gary for the very first time.
Do you want to be friends? Me too.
But when you really like dig deep into it, it is again just a Camp Coral ad with SpongeBob being like, I was so great when I met Gary at Camp Coral. Oh, Camp Coral. That was just the first hint of what was to come, of what was to spit in my face as I watched this movie. And SpongeBob and Patrick, they just go on this journey and they randomly start dreaming, and all of a sudden they're in a western town, and Snoop Dogg shows up and Keanu Reeves shows up, and Snoop Dogg hits a jig and sings a song, and a bunch of dancing zombies happen, and it's all so fucking stupid. Danny Trejo shows up and they kill him, and again, it just all feels pointless. It's just to subvert your expectations and make you wonder, is this real? Is this not real? And it genuinely just feels like they're trying to fill time. I don't know why Keanu had to be in this film. He doesn't actually add that much, and I love Keanu. You know, go Keanu! You do the bare minimum, buddy. You don't seem to like children, which everybody else in Hollywood just does for some godforsaken reason. I like Keanu Reeves a lot, but again, his injection in this movie is fine. But is it necessary? No, not really, because the finale of it is just, again, a Camp Coral advertisement, so it just all feels a little bit off. I think the thing that pissed me off the most is when they get to Atlantic City, where Gary is supposed to be. Keanu warns them not to get distracted by everything there, because it's basically Vegas, and I get it, it's very SpongeBob and Patrick to get distracted, but I don't know. Does it feel wrong that Gary is missing and SpongeBob just got a view into what could happen to Gary, showing every other snail that was with Poseidon now being a snail slave, just being forced to push a cog in a machine, tired, perhaps getting whipped, perhaps getting beaten, and he just gets distracted by everything, and it just feels so out of character, even if SpongeBob is very, you know, like, unable to focus and really likes goofing off a lot. It's Gary. You know, Gary, come home. Gary, come home. I'm sorry I neglected you. You're more than a pet, you're my best friend. And he's just gonna sit there gambling, and I found all the gambling shenanigans to just be like, yeah, this is happening. This is just eye candy. It doesn't add anything meaningful to the story at all. Everybody in Bikini Bottom realizes that SpongeBob and Patrick are gone, and SpongeBob and Patrick, they try to steal Gary back, and now they're going to be executed. We get more slop arguments between SpongeBob and Patrick, which just creates conversation, because it ultimately is meaningless. None of it matters, because every single problem within this film is resolved within the next second. SpongeBob and Patrick are arguing. Oh, they apologize to each other right away. Plankton the one who causes all of this, Mr. Krabs gives him the formula, and because he gets the formula way too easy, he all of a sudden doesn't give a shit about his evil plan and wants to go and help get SpongeBob and Patrick back. It's just so weird for his character to come up with this plan, have it work, and then, it's not satisfying enough, bro. What the hell? Like, dude. It's just so random. Like, every conflict is resolved so easily, and everybody goes to get SpongeBob and Patrick back, and SpongeBob has to stand trial, and then they all just start saying how they met SpongeBob, and every scene is just, man, rootin' tootin', I remember how I met SpongeBob. It was in Camp Coral. And then they genuinely show just a great scene, I guess, of how they met SpongeBob. It's very sweet, it's very wholesome, but then they do it 5 more times with Mr. Krabs having his own Camp Coral story, with Patrick having his own Camp Coral story, and with Squidward having his own illustrious Camp Coral story.
I too met this nabob in summer camp. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Like, you have to make it that blatant that this is what you want? I mean, I get it. It's Camp Coral. It's SpongeBob. It was gonna sell no matter what. You still executed it quite poorly, so it really doesn't matter. But just sitting there, watching a movie and just getting 5 advertisements in a row is baffling. I think the finale of this movie does pick up after they stop with all the advertisements and they steal Gary back and they start running away. We get them fighting in a night costume. And for the 3rd movie in a row, there is emphasis on Patrick's thick, big, meaty ass because they couldn't shove him into a night costume, so Plankton almost gets sucked inside of his rectum, which is something that I, of course, have to point out.
You gotta be kidding me!
But that was great. We get some great scenes with them in a night costume fighting against all of King Poseidon's men, and eventually it just is resolved extremely easy with SpongeBob being all like, let loose, man, and King Poseidon is just like, I'm gonna let out my inner creepy uncle who stares at all the children at a party, and he just gets really ugly, bald, pot belly, all that nonsense, and it's resolved in that way, just through conversation. I think King Poseidon is just very underdeveloped and ultimately a very lame, I can't even call him a villain, just a guy in the movie. A guy in the movie. I really hated this one. I really disliked this one, and that pains me to say because it clearly had a lot of potential. It's just the things that they decide to lean into really pissed me off. SpongeBob and Patrick goofing off when Gary may be a potential slave just feels wrong to me. It really does. And then all of those advertisements for Camp Coral just repeatedly retconning the series with the actual meetings that SpongeBob has with these characters, while also just feeling so completely and utterly blatantly trying to sell you something, just made me so angry. If I was to rate this movie 1 to 10, I would probably give it a solid 3 out of 10. I think it does have some good about it, but the majority is just completely and utterly annoying. Now taking a look at Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie. And typically, I like to go through the entire plot of the movie just because I think it's fun to tackle every single situation and my thoughts on the movie as a whole. But with this, it doesn't even fucking deserve that. This is a disgrace to SpongeBob. One of the things that I hate about modern SpongeBob is it more caters to a younger audience, which is okay. I mean, I get it. You're just trying to make money. You're not trying to have all of your writers work day and night to create some actual good comedy. But the first few seasons of SpongeBob were genuinely hilarious, and the jokes were designed to make anybody, a 4-year-old or a 85-year-old, laugh. That's why I love those OG seasons so much. It is just very comedic. And the later seasons, they don't really do that. They cater to a much younger audience, and that is what this film tends to do, but with genuinely no saving grace, a horrible plot, horrible animation. I don't know why we're focusing on CGI for every single movie, when the first movie did hand-drawn animation with them going out of the water, and did it perfectly. It bled in so well, and SpongeBob and Patrick look natural somehow, walking around normal humans. But here, everything is just at its absolute worst, especially Sandy. Sandy looks like a pile of dog shit. Oh, and not to mention, SpongeBob in this movie, when they go to the surface, he gives a big old sniff and inhale of some good old-fashioned feces, which just sums up this movie so unbelievably well.
Stride is about 4 inches.
Wow! Texas sure is magical.
The plot is all over the place. It's boring. Sandy just isn't a good character to run this entire movie, or at least the way they write her, with us meeting Sandy Cheeks' family and Sandy being, oh shucks, should I go back to the circus or should I focus on that there science? With Bikini Bottom being stolen and SpongeBob and Sandy have to go and try to save it, and they do a lot of stuff in Texas. They fight rattlesnakes, they go to a water park, they run away from a pug, which was actually quite enjoyable. I like them running away from the pug. That was some great scenes, but ultimately, the majority of this movie is just not worth talking about. And then we get to the villain. The villain is absolutely disgusting. I don't know who greenlit this. I don't know who wanted this. I think the villain's name is Sue. I don't know. I couldn't really pay attention because every time she was on screen, I was basically gagging. Her introduction scene, she has this little song and she's walking over, and then there's this like horribly animated CGI fish, genuinely one of the worst looking things I've seen come out of this franchise. It looks atrocious, and she walks up to this fish who doesn't appear to be like fully sentient like other creatures, and just passionately starts kissing it and making out. And I started gagging. I thought it was so disgusting, and I guess they thought it was funny, but the entire idea of a character who just ever since she was a child, she wanted to take fish out of the water and cuddle and snuggle and kiss them is fucking weird. Even if you're trying to play it off for laughs, even if you're trying to find the comedy within it, I think it's inherently very weird and I don't like it. Her entire idea is to try to profit off of all of the fish in Bikini Bottom, cloning them and making it so they could breathe air so that they could sell a lot of them and make a lot of money. And also to cuddle and passionately kiss them, which is, again, so weird. Sandy and SpongeBob, they eventually show up there, and Sandy has this entire character arc where apparently everything she was doing in Bikini Bottom was being watched, so Sandy has to feel bad for just, you know, having fun with her friends, and then she has to save the day with her lasso and karate kick the lady, and then she gets eaten by the fish, and then they go back to Bikini Bottom all willy-nilly, happy, great stuff. It is just atrocious. It's paced horribly. Nothing about it is even remotely funny. I don't think I laughed a single time in this movie, which is just atrocious, because I didn't like Sponge on the Run, but I was laughing a couple of times. I found some of it to be a little bit funny, and there wasn't even a scene with Patrick's voluptuous ass in this one. So what am I really getting from this? What am I trying to enjoy? I don't know. Horrible animation, horrible comedy, a horrible cuddly kissing fish story, and it is just so bad. So yeah, I don't even want to talk about this one anymore. This is definitely the worst one probably in the franchise. If they're somehow able to top this with the next movies that I watch, I will be so baffled. This movie is genuinely a 1 out of 10 for me, which is crazy to say. The next movie I'm going to be taking a look at is the Plankton movie, and Sheldon, that dog, went and got himself a pretty decent feature-length film. I really don't have a whole lot of complaints about this one, at least compared to those other two movies with woman making out with a fish. I really did enjoy this. I thought it was a lot better. It actually tackles an interesting concept. You know how Plankton is a little bit of a domestic abuser, maybe not physically, but I mean, if Plankton was a human being, for example, and he was able to fornicate, birth out some kids, he would name the first one Fetch, the second one My, and the third one Beer, and he would call for them at the same time. Fetch my beer! Fetch my beer! And if the children, at the ripe old age of 3 months, if they didn't, you know, get the whole picture, going over to the fridge and grabbing a little bit of liquor, oh, Sheldon would unleash upon them a wrath, a very tiny wrath, but a wrath nonetheless. And in this case, in the SpongeBob universe, because it has to be a lot more tame, he just verbally abuses his wife, and I don't know, it's just played for laughs. And Karen finally snaps in this movie, and I actually think she is a phenomenal villain for the movie, and it's great to explore her character in other ways. A lot of it is a little bit of a musical. It's like 2 minutes of regular SpongeBob nonsense and then a song, 2 minutes of SpongeBob nonsense and then a song, and some of them are hit or miss, some of them are better than others, but I think it progresses the story decently well. And SpongeBob throughout the film, he's kind of like a psychiatrist. He keeps hypnotizing Plankton, and while Karen starts going crazy, betraying Plankton, and trying to take over the world on her own, we get to learn a lot about Plankton's past, how he built Karen out of a potato, how they went to college together, how they fell in love and had passionate, robotic bottom feeder sex. Oh God, how exquisite. Oh dear. Yes, oh, got to love it. Quite a lot. I don't know what I'm doing. Either way, it was pretty entertaining, and watching Karen just be the villain and everybody have to deal with that is a lot of fun. She eventually steals all the buildings in Bikini Bottom and makes like a giant super HQ, and then we get this awesome scene, and I do like how every single time Plankton is rethinking his life, we get a different form of animation, because I really do like 2D SpongeBob a lot more than 3D SpongeBob. Just all this CGI nonsense, I think it looks a lot better, and all the scenes where they decide to do flashbacks and Plankton rethinking everything is a lot of fun. He gets an empathy he gets an empathy chip put inside of him, all the way in there, deep up in there, and he rethinks his entire life, and it takes a very long time for Plankton to realize that he's basically verbally abused his wife for the past 25 years, but I do think the scene in which he slowly realizes it and then wants to go out of his way to make everything right is a lot of fun. I think the finale is pretty great with Karen's gal pals, that being Sandy, Mrs. Puff, and Pearl, all breaking into the HQ to fight against the Karens, and Plankton trying to get to his wife and eventually confessing all of his feelings. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it works. It's just overall kind of a whatever movie. Like, the main reason I think I like it so much is because compared to the other two I just watched, it is significantly better. It's not a bad movie by any means, but I don't really think I would ever want to watch this one again. I think it's a fine initial idea. I think it was executed decently well, but it just doesn't really have any substance that would make me ever feel like I have the need to watch this again. That being said, decent plot. I laughed a couple of times. There's a wonderful scene at the end where, to destroy the entire like big Karen HQ facility, SpongeBob is chopping up a bunch of potatoes and feeds them all to Patrick, and I was really hoping it would show thick Mondo, fat ass, big, morbidly obese Lizzo Patrick, and it did.
Patrick! High five! Hooray!
And that made me laugh more than anything else in the movie, which I guess is just a little bit disappointing. I don't know. If I was to rate this movie 1 to 10, I'd probably give it a 6. It's better than the other ones, and it's decent. It's a fine movie, just definitely not my favorite. SpongeBob Big Guy Pants Okay. SpongeBob Big Guy Pants Okay. SpongeBob Big Guy Pants Okay. There's never been greater words spoken as we head into our final movie in the SpongeBob franchise, that being Search for SquarePants. And I still can't fathom that Ice Spice is who they genuinely decided to go with for this movie. For a kids movie, the girl that they decided to pick for their main song, their main promotional advertisement for the movie, is a woman who loves to rap about stinky feces coming out of her rectum. Like, genuinely, did they hear a song? I don't know, I've never listened to an Ice Spice song in which she's like, oh yeah, I'm twerking it and fecal matter's coming out, yes, this is exactly what I needed to poop. And they're like, This woman can make a great song for our movie. Oh, with big guys and pants and okay. I'm sure nothing will go wrong about it. And then you have Ice Spice being like, oh gosh, I'm so happy to be a part of the SpongeBob franchise. I'm so happy to bring a shining light to all of the children as they go to see this movie. And you know what they really went to see? They went to see my brown stained underpants as she wears fucking nothing to the movie premiere. Like, it's one thing to be fine showing your body. I understand completely that the only reason she has a fan base is because she likes to twerk it voluptuously, and just men are like, oh my god, she sucks at singing, but look at that yacht, look at that fat thing, you know? And that's the only reason she even remotely exists. But irregardless, you're going to a children's premiere for a kids movie, and there's going to be kids there. It's a SpongeBob premiere, and you decide to wear a see-through dress that exposes yourself to children. Who was it for? You cannot say it was for you to feel good about yourself when you... Oh god, I just can't get over it. Either way, The actual movie on its own was actually really good. It's probably the third best movie out of all of them, out of the six. It actually had a lot of jokes that I genuinely laughed at. I thought the plot was decent. Jesus. The Flying Dutchman was actually a really cool villain to re-explore, even though he's appeared so much in SpongeBob in the past. Just wiping that slate clean and giving him an entire new backstory, an entire new purpose, and making SpongeBob have to counteract that was actually a lot of fun. I thought this movie was really decent, even though I've heard that it's not that good, but I had a lot of fun with it. I really like the beginning of it, where SpongeBob is putting a lot of emphasis on the fact that he's grown 1 inch. He's 1 inch taller. And I didn't really think that it was going to have any other significance other than SpongeBob big guy pants okay. SpongeBob big guy pants okay. You know, I thought that was really going to be it. But then he goes to see Patrick, and Patrick has such a funny response to this, where he's like, I don't even know who you are. I don't know anything about you anymore. Your SpongeBob's a little bit more vertically challenged, a little bit more, lower in stature.
You're upside down!
No, Patrick, it's me, SpongeBob.
You can't be SpongeBob. He's far more diminutive.
I think it's funny. I love Patrick's response to that, and I think the progression of the film after this is really great, with SpongeBob going to see a roller coaster, not being able to do that. He goes to work, and then Mr. Krabs tells him his tales of sailing with the Flying Dutchman. And SpongeBob, his ass inflates, and he has a call to destiny to go find this, horn that could summon the Flying Dutchman. And one thing that this movie definitely did wrong is Patrick is known to have a thick badonkadonk on him. I've mentioned it quite frequently throughout this video that Patrick's voluptuous fat ass is a reoccurring highlight of every movie. And there's a scene in this film in which his ass is flat.
You feel it?
Yeah!
This vent is just what...
What happened to my Patrick's thick dumpy? He eats so much it has to at least be a little bit inflated. How could this happen? That's not what I'm gonna focus on, though. I can move past it. They eventually blow the horn, and then that summons the Flying Dutchman, and the Flying Dutchman needs to use SpongeBob to break his curse, so they go to the underworld, and I think this leads to actually a lot of really great scenes, with SpongeBob using his childlike nature to solve all these different challenges, to ascend up the tiers of the challenge area, and once they get to the finale of that, the Flying Dutchman can be freed. And he's tricking SpongeBob the entire time. It's a really great dynamic. At the same time, you have Mr. Krabs and Squidward, and Gary, I'm glad that Gary got to tag along, sailing their way in the underworld to try to save SpongeBob. It just leads to a lot of really great scenes, a lot of different villains, a lot of different things being explored. I like all the monsters within the underworld. I just think it's overall a really well-paced film that is something for everybody, and I like the characters that they decide to use. We get this really weird montage where SpongeBob is rapid fire solving a bunch of different challenges, and then all of a sudden it cuts to a Paramount is interrupting this message, and then the big fish says, we need Sandy, and then Sandy shows up and fucking explodes. I don't really know what that was all about, but it's funny nonetheless. So they eventually get all the way to the big finale of it, and the Flying Dutchman turns back into a human and goes to Santa Monica to live his life, and SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs are turned into the Flying Dutchman, so they have to go to the land and fight the Flying Dutchman one more time to break his horn to turn him back in the Flying Dutchman. And I'm not really going to go too thoroughly in detail, but I will say it is very enjoyable. I do like the Flying Dutchman here as a villain. I think he's great. I like that the final conflict is literally just SpongeBob having to conquer his fear and ride a roller coaster. I think it's overall a very interesting and well done movie. I don't think it really deserves much hate outside of, including Ice Spice. Wasn't it a lot nicer when our big closing out song was Ocean Man, take me by the hand, lead me to the man, won't you understand? I thoroughly enjoyed that song. Why do we need, fecal matter twerker to get up in there? Either way, solid movie, decent film. If I was rated 1 to 10, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. It was a decent enough movie, at least for me. Oh, and here's your final ranking, you see. In sixth place is the Sandy Cheeks movie. I don't like watching a human kiss a fish on the mouth. It's a 1 out of 10. In fifth place is Sponge on the Run. I think it's stupid. It's stupid to make an entire movie an advertisement. It's just a waste of your time. In fourth place, I got Plankton. I thought it was a decent enough movie for Plankton, for Karen. She was a pretty solid villain, a solid 6 out of 10. In third place is Search for SquarePants. I thought it was okay. It's a 7 out of 10. I like the Flying Dutchman as a villain, and it made me laugh. In second place is Sponge Out of the Water, and it was fun for the most part. I really like the 2D animation, and then I thought they balanced it out well with the SpongeBob and Plankton duo. In first place is SpongeBob the SquarePants, the movie. It's just can't be topped. It's a classic. It captures the magic of the OG seasons of SpongeBob, and it's so enjoyable. Man, doing all this shit without a script is rough. I'm just such a fucking thrilling master that I just got it all right off the dome to sing you a song that you'll sing to your children before bed for eons. As long as this planet lives, you'll sing that wondrous tune so children know what SpongeBob movies to actually watch. So yeah, this was a decent enough video, I think. I had a decent enough time. It's a lot of fun to actually get to explore all these movies and see what I was missing out on, especially because some of them are actually a lot of fun. I actually like 4 out of the 6 movies, enough to where, I mean, I'd watch 2 of them again. The other 2 I'd probably never watch again, but they were still a very pleasant experience. The other 2 were a waste of time in a fucking dumpster fire, but hey, other than that, it was fun. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe. I got lots of great content on the way. And yeah, SpongeBob has always meant a lot to me. I still quote it in my daily life. It's just a thing that me and my brother will always be able to quote with each other because it was just such a classic growing up. So getting to see how far it's come and how far in a way it's fallen is very interesting. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.